two facts that have really struck me recently. One is that the richest 300 people in the world have more wealth than the poorest 3 billion, nearly half the population of the world. And secondly, that even in the US, people are depressed about the future. When asked if life for our children's generation will be better than it has been for us, fully 76% said they had no such confidence, and only 21% agreed. That's the worst result ever recorded in that poll. Now, Einstein said that no problem can be solved from the consciousness that created it. So what is the current shift in consciousness that's required to enable us to resolve global problems? In my experience, true pioneers are fueled by their vision of how a new world could be and dare to take on what's never been done before. And now, when so few people have any vision at all of the future, today's pioneers are sufficiently in touch with the planet, with their inner voice, to know what needs doing and how to do it. So this begins, again in my experience, in what I would call the radical mastery of one's inner being. Brilliance, charisma, eloquence, these are wonderful gifts that a leader can possess. But these gifts gain effect and coherence only when fueled and sustained by inner power. In half a century of work in the world, the most important lesson I learned from observing people like Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu at close quarters is that inner work is the prerequisite for outer effectiveness. In other words, that the quality of our awareness directly affects the quality of the results produced. This inner power, this what I would call this shift in consciousness, is the diamond formed by honing self-awareness, practicing selflessness, and observing and controlling the ego. What I'm expressing here has been known by all the great spiritual traditions, but it needs now to be reclaimed for a secular world in crisis and in language that everyone can understand. Without leaders of this kind in every sphere and institution of our world, our chances of survival are grim. With such leaders, a world can be built that our grandchildren will be proud of. I'm certain that a different future for all of humanity is possible if humans wake up. And interestingly, this is happening quite fast now in the corporate world. Reflection, mindfulness, and inner work are now seen as an essential tool in many leading companies. I think starting with stress reduction, probably emanating from there, and now extensively featured in the FT and on the cover of Time magazine. But waking up means more than sitting quietly in meditation. It means a radical revision of values. And the young social entrepreneurs that I work with are at the cutting edge of this. Last summer, I helped train a bunch of them from all over the world. And beside the technical skills that they needed to research their projects, build a website, raise startup funds, they learned the inner skills that are vital in really transforming the world. Skills to build trust in their teams, to resolve conflict quickly and effectively, and speak truth to power, as the Quakers have it. Self-awareness at this individual level is what can enable each person to wake up and do what's needed to ensure a future for us all on the planet and to change the world from the bottom up. And there's a growing passion out there to do this kind of work. There were 100 applicants for every place in this year-long course at the Do School based in Hamburg, now spreading to New York, Delhi, Nairobi, and so on. And the alumni of previous courses are back home cascading the skills they've learned. They now work on startups in over 50 countries, and in response to demand, there are hundreds of these courses becoming available now around the world. And it isn't only the young. Today, there are thousands of highly paid professionals in their 40s and 50s quitting well-paid jobs to devote their skills to the good of the planet. You and I know many such examples in the West, but I think of Anupam Jalote, who quit one of the most senior jobs in Indian telecom to develop anaerobic digesters, which I've seen, so that villagers from all over that massive subcontinent can cook with local sources of renewable energy. But work that like theirs is below the radar. It doesn't make the headlines. It's at street level, and you might well miss what's happening. Most of the media certainly have. And what's going on seems to me to be a movement without a name, like green shoots coming up through concrete. These are people, and I hesitated to use this phrase, these are people who are hunting truth, who are awake to the earth, who've woken up to what previous generations have done, my generation, and refused to resign themselves to simply wait out the crisis or relax into mindless consumption. They have the intelligence to see through the fog of spin, to piece together a global picture of trends and to realize the extent of the present crisis. And, crucially, they've got the courage to enter the darkness of what humans do to humans, to see the worst results of destruction and to stand up to put a stop to it, to create something alive and dynamic in its place. Martha Graham, you may remember, one of the greatest artists of the 20th century, said, "There's a vitality, a life force, an energy, a quickening that's translated through you," she meant them, "into action. There is no satisfaction whatsoever at any time. There is only a queer, divine dissatisfaction. A blessed unrest," the title of a book that followed, that makes us more alive than the other. And the energy awakened in young social entrepreneurs is like a lightning flash. I've seen it jump from one to another over thousands of miles, literally, by Skype, without a word said. A secret smile of recognition, a frisson from this special frequency that's going on, and a confidence in the skill of each other to find a way through. And do they come through? They're cleaning up crime in Rio, raising women's rights in Tahrir Square, teaching computer skills to young men at risk of terrorism in Kenya, setting up safe transport for girls in Islamabad, enabling scavenger kids in the Philippines to go to school, stopping knife fights down the road in East London, and more and more. Now, the connections that are now happening quite quickly between those who've woken up and those waking, whether young social entrepreneurs, NGO workers, or business people, are happening because all have, to some extent, moved from me to we. They care less about how much they have and more about how much they can offer. I think this is really a crucial part of it all. It's the inner self-awareness enables us to see what we're up to personally, and then to move to a helicopter view of that and see what we can offer to the planet that so needs our work. These people want to improve things for other people rather than be impressive. And the other pivotal factor for our future is the emergence of women. I approach this in what might seem a rather oblique way, via a change that I see in the awareness of violence against women. 10 years ago, if a young woman in Pakistan had been shot in the head for defending girls' right to go to school, it would not have been news. But when Malala Yousafzai was shot, because of social media, it went viral. And within days, the Pakistani government had to declare her a heroine and propose her for the Nobel Peace Prize. And a year later, she was making a magnificent lecture at the UN. Think also of that desperate rape in Delhi, when the young woman who was raped on the bus at night with her boyfriend died a few days later, and how that went viral as well. And within days, there were thousands of women in cities all over India protesting. Now, rape has been a daily occurrence in cities all over India, all over many countries, and it hasn't become news. So something is happening in terms of our awareness of what women live through daily. And the knock-on effect of this is that women are beginning to have more media space, social media and mainstream media, to express what it is that they see for a future world. And hence this organisation, Rising Women, Rising World, that will be launched in the House of Commons on the 17th of November. Next week I'll be in Geneva talking at the Inter-Parliamentary Union about this issue of the effects of violence on women and how that is paradoxically enabling their voice to be heard. And my inbox is full daily with these new female initiatives. And where women are particularly active is on shifting our values. Working with them, I've come up with 10 stale values and the new values that are replacing them. So the first old value would be survival of the fittest. And the value that's replacing that is cooperation is actually more efficient. A stale value would be might makes right. And the new value is common security is actually safer and a cheaper system than one based on weapons and superior power. Thirdly, the old value would be humans have the right to do as we like with the earth. And the new value is humans become responsible stewards of the earth, helping regenerate its beauty and diversity. We have to go now beyond sustainability. It's not going to serve us. We have to go to regeneration. Fourthly, science and the rational mind are what matter most. And that's giving way to the fact that the human body, mind, feelings, and spirit are interacting constantly, and the whole package is consciousness. Fifthly, continuing economic growth is essential, and that's being replaced by growth in consciousness is now more important. Sixth one, good fences make good neighbours. Lots of my friends in the Foreign Office keep repeating that to me. And I believe, through all the work that Peace Direct does and the Oxford Research Group and many, many others throughout the world, that building trust is the most effective form of security available today. And we know a lot more than we did about how to do it. Seventh, short-termism is fine. And that's being replaced by our decisions now must take account of what the oldest indigenous traditions have been telling us for centuries, namely that we have to think in terms of 7 generations hence. Eighth, the technical fix will always be invented in time to resolve serious problems. And that's replaced by there is a greater intelligence available, and it's infinitely more powerful than anything in here. Ninth, women are too emotional to deal with the real issues of business and world affairs. And that's clearly being replaced by the capacities of the deep feminine and the deep masculine in both men and women are now seen as essential for human survival on the planet. And lastly, consuming is our right. And that seems to be being replaced by what we really desire is to satisfy the human longing for meaning and beauty. So I'll just conclude by saying that women, young social entrepreneurs, and all the people who are waking up, and you can see them by their energy now, they know the secret. If the mantra of last century was, what can I get? They know that the mantra of this century will be, what can I give? What they're willing to do is to risk all that others would guard so jealously: career, fame, wealth, to do what they can to make the world a better place. What's more, they love the adventure in this. And as more citizens begin to wake up to what's possible, we seem to be realizing that the earth really is ours to protect and defend.